Please stay tuned and we'll start in just a moment. Please note that you will be on mute and we won't be using video for the duration of this meeting. Also, this will be recorded and will be available on the MoneyThink YouTube channel. Please go ahead and take a few minutes to maybe introduce yourselves to other colleagues that are in the space by introducing your name, title, and organization if the chat. Go ahead and engage and we'll start in just a few minutes. Also, please note that we won't be using the raise hand feature today. So if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat or into the Q&A. Thank you. We'll start in just a few more minutes. And if you're just joining us, again, we welcome you to introduce yourselves to other colleagues in the space today. This is a webinar for advisors, so go ahead and let folks know who's with us. We so far have San Jose Cal Soap in the house. Welcome. Alejandra, woo woo, good to see you. Look at all this Cal Soap representation. I appreciate y'all showing up. We'll get started in just one more minute. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome everyone to College Success Through Financial Aid Planning. Today, we at MoneyThink are so excited to share with you our new tool, Decided, and the accompanying advisor dashboard for educators and college access programs. So we're sure this is not your first time with Zoom. And we're going to, but we want to make sure that you know how to use today's Zoom. So first, this webinar will be recorded. It will be on the MoneyThink YouTube channel by next week, where you can also find our student video and past webinars. I'm going to go ahead and paste that YouTube link right into the chat. Second, we invite you to use the chat to give us any feedback and respond to any calls for responses we may put out there. And as you've seen, our colleagues are already using the chat as a medium to introduce themselves to each other. So please, we encourage you to build connections while John and I talk at you so that you can make this an engaging experience for you as well. Third, we have a Q&A, and we'd like you to please put all your questions there if you can so that we can organize them throughout the webinar. We don't want to lose your important questions in the chat, so just noting the Q&A is the best place for it. Okay, and then last, we're going to ask you a few polls, and we would love your engagement. So let's start with the first one because we'd like to get to know our audience. So please take a brief moment to complete the poll that will pop up on your screen. There it is. And the question is, we'd like to know who's in our audience. How do you identify yourself? So let us know if you're an advisor or it sounds like we do have a student here from Evergreen Valley College. Welcome. If you're a parent, an administrator of a school, but just go ahead and take a moment to let us know who's here. We'll give you just a few more seconds. And then John, whenever you feel like we're close, um, feel free to share out with our community here. Who's present? It looks like we're close. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody who's come out. We've got advisors, we've got nonprofit leaders, we've got high school counselors, administrators, and even some students. So thank you for joining us. Just noting that if you are a student or parent, a big focus of this will be, there will be a focus on the student experience as well as the educator experience. So I'll let you know when we get to the educator experience, and you can decide at that point if you want to take a coffee break or something like that before coming back for Q&A. Awesome. Thanks again, everyone, for participating in that. So today, you are joining my colleague, John Tamrat, college financial coach, and myself, Meredith Curry. You can call me Mare. I'm the Director of Education Partnerships for MoneyThink. At MoneyThink, we believe that students make college plans a reality when they understand how to manage their financial aid. And that's why we want to share with educators and advisors how college success planning begins with college affordability planning. So first, who is MoneyThink? MoneyThink is an innovative nonprofit that helps students seeking financial aid to achieve college success by supporting financial decision-making. MoneyThink harnesses the power of people and technology to bring transparency to college costs so that all students are equipped to invest in their futures. We do this by developing tools like Decided, which we'll talk about in a bit, to empower students to invest in the future by building technology that clarifies college finances. And we'll be talking about this clarifying piece more and more today. We also just want to share that Decided as a tool encompasses 10 plus years of expertise that we have in supporting students and families with financial literacy and college access work. We have combined our expertise with student-centered design to inform the creation and development of Decided, resulting in a tool that is student and family-centered and takes the guesswork out of college affordability. And we just want to say a huge thank you again to our supporters like the Taco Bell Foundation, Capital One, the Charles Schwab Foundation, and Prudential. I also want to send a shout out to thank the various organizations that have signed up for today's event and those who've supported with getting the word out, many of which are represented on the slide and many of you who've already checked in today. So thank you again to Scholar Match, San Jose CalSoap, Richmond Promise, and A-List Education, and our various partners across the country. We partner with local nonprofits like Silicon Valley Education Fund, platforms like A-List Education, and scholarship organizations like Richmond Promise to bring financial aid planning to your students, their families, and to educators like you who are their champions. And so let's take it to why we're here today, because we are all sitting right here in the sweet, sweet blue circle. Our students are in this part of their college journey right now. They're applying to colleges and completing financial aid applications. And I'm sure that many of you are knee deep in this process with them. So again, thank you for joining us at 4 o'clock as we get closer and closer to application deadlines. So we also know that as they complete these applications, we want them to wait for their college acceptance letters and their financial aid award letters to come in the mail and through their email and student portals. So this is where you as advisors, we as their community can really support students in ensuring they get all the information they need to make an informed college choice in the spring. This is also where we know you already spend a lot of time and effort helping students to track down their application results and helping them to complete the next steps of their journey, as in these two green bubbles, the sweet spot. We also know from experience that students don't always track the results of all their college applications, let alone the award letters. We also know that it's super critical that they collect all the award letters for the colleges that accept them so that they compare those packages and figure out if the college is affordable for them or not. Affordability is a crucial part of college fit, as we all know, which is something I think many of us on this webinar believe, and we work hard to explain to families. That said, the step of determining college affordability happens to be very complex and challenges educators, students, and families alike. So why is this so complicated? And why do families and educators in the field struggle every year to talk about financial aid and affordability? Well, first, we have the college affordability problem. For many of us that track the work and communications of NCAN, the National College Attainment Network, we've learned that less than 5% of four-year colleges are considered affordable for low-income students. This reality is why we often talk to students about the option of going to a two-year college and transferring to a four-year. Many of the organizations on this webinar, like MoneyThink, serve low-income, Pell-eligible, first-generation college-going students, and they are disproportionately impacted from everything to their college knowledge, to academic preparation, to financial and community supports that can get them to and through college. We also know that the nation's $1.6 trillion in student debt is fueled by confusing and unclear pricing in college costs. A new report on student debt and the class of 2019 shares that more than 6 in 10 college seniors who graduated from public and private nonprofit colleges last year in 2019 had student loan debt, and they owed an average of just over $28,000. We've seen that financial aid awards are a big part of the problem. Research shows this. 140 plus unique terms are used just to describe what loans are. And this means that sometimes families don't know when loans are being presented to them, let alone when they're accepting them. We've seen that 70% of letters group all aid together and don't explain the differences between grants and scholarships, loans and work study. John and I have been hosting financial aid workshops. We have Cal Soaps that are on the line right now, and we know we've been spending tons of time walking students through the very important differences between gift aid, like grants and scholarships, versus aid that they will have to pay back or earn, like loans and work study. So it's especially problematic that some of that money that those students can't actually see that terminology, even when they have built a little bit of acumen or college knowledge around those terms. Um, we know that this is problematic for them too, because it affects how they pay for college, right? Some of those bills they can pay right away with certain types of aid versus others like work study they earn later. So we need to make sure that we support students in understanding these differences, but also helping them in finding out these important details as they navigate their college acceptances and award letters. This problem of unclear award letters that are different from college to college has led students and families to navigate this process with limited guidance and poor information on their own. And this is a big part of why we all do what we do as advisors, high school counselors, folks working at colleges, for folks working at outreach programs, right? The information that is hard to find is how affordable this college is for the student and their family, and that's what we aim to support them with. So now that we've talked a little bit about the affordability of colleges that students apply to, obviously the question we know students are going to ask is, then how do I pay for college? And that's where we believe Decided comes in. And now I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, John, who can introduce you to Decided from the student experience.
Thanks, Mayor. As we stated at the beginning of this webinar, MoneyThink's mission is to bring transparency to college costs so that all students are equipped to invest in their future. And Decide is our free tool to students to help them establish their plan for college starting next month by helping students understand if the financial aid award packages are offered are affordable or not. Once students know how affordable a college is, they should also consider whether or not it meets other factors like diversity, graduation rates, distance from home, and possible earnings for future things to consider. Currently, students are making very ill-informed enrollment decisions based on very confusing data, and many advisors don't have the capacity to support students in understanding their award letters. And this is really evident when we're looking at cases where counselor to student ratio is 500 to 1 or even worse in certain places. And even for college access organizations that are out there supporting students with this, like many of you on this call today, it's very laborious and the support is not always readily accessible to many students who are still left without that support. Decided in that regard is reshaping the way that students can go about making enrollment decisions by providing them all the important information needed in one place. Therefore, trying to remove the stress and the uncertainty when making these tough and difficult enrollment decisions about their future. Decided takes the guesswork out of college affordability by using our optical character recognition tool and our machine learning to transform those confusing and complex award letters into more clear and concise formats. And Decided's objective is to help students make that holistic college enrollment decision that is informed by the accurate understanding of the cost of their college options, with an intended goal of increasing the chance of students obtaining a bachelor's degree with a sustainable amount of debt. This can be attained by supporting students to, firstly, quickly and accurately understand all of their award letters. Second, supporting them in comparing the affordability of their options so that they can go on and make well informed enrollment decisions that's best for them. And thirdly, knowing the full cost of colleges and helping them to support to create a plan to pay for it. One of the most confusing parts of the award letters that many students and families have stated over and over is understanding what the actual bill is. So essentially, what will be the cost that they should expect to pay or be responsible for? Well, let's walk through the use of the tool using a student. Let's call the student Alex. So once Alex uploads an award letter to a college on Decided, she'll be able to clearly see and understand what cost she'll be responsible for. Decided will automatically calculate all of the free money on her award letter. So any grants and scholarships will be applied to the cost of attendance at that school. Once that calculation is done, Alex will be able to see what is left over to cover under college bill for any expenses due directly to that college. For any expenses not due to the college, that will be reflected in their life budget for expenses like personal expenses, travel, books, and supplies. Decided demystifies a process that's cryptic by design. After Alex uploads her award letter to the app, she can immediately compare school options directly, giving her more of an apple to apple comparison, allowing her to see the most pressing information like basic affordability, which is presented at first glance with colors and thumbs up and down markers to help make sense of these costs quickly. As Alex scrolls down, she can access more other relevant information about the schools, like the graduation rate or that diversity, to get a sense of belonging on campus, for campus environment, or even looking at average salaries after graduation to really see what is the ROI for her in choosing a certain college. By simplifying key aspects of college fit, providing all these data points at the fingertips, students like Alex are empowered to move forward with confidence and optimism with their enrollment decision. Alex can make a decision that doesn't just focus on fit, but also affordability in mind. So, what is affordability? At MoneyThink, we consider a college affordable if the gap is less than 7,500. This means that students will be able to cover this gap reasonably with a combination of loans, work, and family support. A student will be able to do this by taking out no more than 5,500 in loans and or working 10 or less hours during the school year. Now, guess what? Research has shown that approximately 30% of award letters actually don't include cost at all. This means that students see how much they're getting, but they don't have any expenses to compare that to. So, what good is it to know that you got $20,000 in grants, but you actually don't know what your gap is left over, right? Which you can't calculate if you don't know the actual cost that you're going to be needing to pay for the upcoming school year. So we consider a school with a gap between 7,500 and 11,500 then in the somewhat affordable range. These schools can still be an option, but it may mean needing a little bit more support from family or potentially working a little bit more or potentially even taking out a little more loans than we recommend of the 5,500. And now we consider a school with a gap of over 11,500 unaffordable. At these schools, a student in this position will struggle to cover the college bill, even with family support, working well in school, and taking more than the recommended amount in loans. Also, taking a large amount of loan is very risky and can greatly impact your future earnings, as well as having monthly payment when paying back, raising the risk of defaulting on loans in the future. Working over 20 plus hours a week can have negative or detrimental impact to the student's success in the classroom. And I want to remind just one more time, when we're looking at these affordability markers and guidance that we're giving as MoneyThink through DecideEd, we are looking at this at the viewpoint of a Pell eligible student, right? So what can that student do on their own? So we know that those who are not Pell eligible may have a little more resources available to them that they can utilize. They can also use the same guidance that we're presenting here, But the focus really, first and foremost, is coming from those students who have very limited access to make sure we can show them the affordable options they have and prevent them getting to financial vulnerable situations down the road. So our goal is to put the student in the driver's seat by equipping them with information needed to make a strong, well-informed decision. Research shows us that 70% of college dropouts are linked to pressing financial concerns. And a major factor to this is due to students facing high unexpected or unplanned costs that lead to students taking out more in student loan debt or need to work way too many hours while in college to cover these costs. To combat and mitigate these unexpected and unplanned financial costs, Decided provides further supplementary support through our guides and recommendations on financial planning and how to effectively leverage money from self, from family, from work study, and or student loans as part of their complete financial package to cover costs for the upcoming year. So if Alex or her parents has a question or wants to learn more, they can refer to these helpful guides and helping them finalize their financial plan for the upcoming year. I'd like to pause here and take a minute to see if there are any one or two decided questions we can quickly answer before I ask Mayor to show us what this all looks like as an advisor.
Thanks so much, John. And I'm checking, and any quick points you want to make before, because I don't see any questions just yet.
Yeah, so just want to highlight again, this is free for students. We want to make this accessible, and our goals and mission is to make sure every student has this information, right? Whether it's Pell or not. But we do focus on making sure we leverage a lot of our resources to support those who are the most in need and the most overlooked and the most underrepresented. And as we can see in today's context with COVID and everything else going on, those are the students that we're trying to really spotlight to make sure they have all the information they need to position themselves for the future.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that. And we appreciate your super thorough exploration of Decided. So folks, again, as I also put in the chat, please feel free to type questions into the Q&A at any time. And also just let us know what you think so far by posting your comments in the chat. But we'll be able to also answer some questions towards the end. I'll go ahead and answer the first question that just popped in, just because it's still related to John's request right now for questions about the student app. So what information is collected from the students in order to create an account? So it's going to request their email address and cell phone number, because it uses codes that are either emailed or texted to sign in, as opposed to using a password. It will ask for their zip code, so we know their location, as you saw from the map, so that shows them the distance to colleges, their first name, last name, GPA. John, any other elements you'd like to note that's part of the sign up process?
No, that's the basis, right? So your name, your email, so you can create your account, and then the GPA and how you identify is just really for us to customize this whole experience for you instead of giving you general numbers and general data.
Great, thank you. And again, keep the questions coming, folks. We'll make sure to get to them at the end. And John, as the questions come in, please feel free to start looking through them and deciding the order we want to answer them. All right, so we just spent some time exploring the challenges that our students face. Now, what about the challenges that advisors, schools, and college access organizations face? Here are just a few, right? So as advisors, high school counselors, mentors, and other champions in students' lives, there's so much to cover with students throughout the year, especially with high school seniors, whether it's building their college lists, helping them apply, or helping them follow up on their applications. We also have seen from the context I provided at the beginning and the student experiences that John shared, that college affordability doesn't always make it into the conversation. And that's sometimes even with resources to explore the topic, such as net price calculators. Part of it is those conversations are difficult to navigate. They're hard to start. Sometimes students don't have the information. Sometimes families aren't ready to discuss it. But again, as we've stated, affordability still is super important. So how do we make sure it is part of the conversation? And then lastly, as advisors, not only are there more students to serve than can be served, but there are also too many tools and no clear direction on how to use the full toolkit. Sometimes there's no consistent training or level of comfort with those tools. or even crucial terms and concepts. And then the biggest factor, which is there's just not enough time. So that's why we see Decided as not just a tool in your students' toolkit, but yours as well. Decided can help students to be more self-directed. As John shared earlier around the guides, they can answer their own questions, build their college knowledge using the app, share that information with their family, and then you can see that same information with the advisor dashboard. So when Decided officially launches with our public launch, where we'll share our outreach toolkit that you can use, advisor guides to help you get started, and more, you'll have access to more events like this as well, and to our advisor sign up form. Our advisor landing page on the Decided website will have information about the dashboard and the student facing web app. And just to note, because I'm to reiterate, this is a web-based app, so it's not a mobile app that that students need to download. They can access it on a mobile device, tablet, computer, Chromebook. To support you, we'll make sure we have resources like videos, checklists to make it easy for organizations and advisors to integrate both Decided for students and the dashboard for advisors into, ideally, right, already scheduled college and financial aid planning activities where this tool can really support and maybe even minimize some of that administrative burden when we don't have tools to use with our students. We'll also be sure to share any best practices to support planning of using Decided in future academic years. So just noting that from here, advisors can request an advisor dashboard account. We'll ask for questions like what organization are you with so that we know if we're working with a college access program, a school, or a district. And John and I will respond to advisor inquiries to help you identify, to help get your organization account set up, help get an admin set up, share resources, and offer tips to implement it with your students and staff. We'll be setting up accounts based on organization, school, and district. And because student privacy is really important to us, it's one of our principles. That is why we're going through this thorough process of vetting the adults who want access to the advisor dashboard, because it gives you visibility into the student's information. So what does the advisor dashboard look like? There are two main account types. So either you're an admin that can create and manage other advisors, or you're an advisor. So in this view, we're an advisor. And whether you're an admin or advisor, you'll be able to manage students, and in a future and soon future release will be groups. So the benefit of the advisor dashboard is you can see at a glance whether your students are undecided or not, how they're engaging with it, and what groups they're in. As an advisor on my dashboard, I have a list of all the students who are in my organization. And for each student, I can see whether they have added any colleges to their decided profile yet, which we can see by the fact that there are boxes, right? And we can, so you can see that this student, for example, Ang Lee, has no colleges added. This is designed to help advisors keep students engaged in the process. Even if they don't have an offer letter yet, students can add the list of schools that they're interested in or are applying to, and get some pretty useful comparative information as we shared with you earlier. And I'll show that again in a moment. So just as an example, if I'm a high school counselor managing a caseload of high school seniors, I can have them get on Decided, they sign up for their accounts, and I can use the dashboard once we have them connected to our organization to see which of my students are on Decided and which action items they've completed. It's also important to note regarding student privacy that this is an opt-in for the student. So students will set up their account, and then advisors will set up their account. And it's during the process of having the admin dashboard set up that you will be given a mechanism for your students to connect with you so that you can see them. So just noting that if a student chooses not to join the organization, then you won't see them appear in your list. And when you add a student to the group or organization, you only see the college selection and letter upload information that they have provided in their profile. So here on the students tab, as you'll see, I get a good snapshot of how all my students are doing, if they're Pell eligible students, if they've added their letters. I can see a summary of how affordable their options are, as we can see already by the color indicators. And when you hover, you'll see some more information. For non-Pell eligible students, as John alluded to earlier, this is a tool that's useful for Pell eligible and non-Pell eligible students. Those who are non-Pell eligible, I can see as an advisor whether they have uploaded a letter or not, and still see that valuable comparative information between the colleges. I can sort the list by student name, filter by the affordability of their options, For instance, I could say I only want to see all the students who have no award letters uploaded, or I only want to see the students who have non-affordable options. And then I can get a more detailed view of each student's application. So if I clicked on the student at the bottom, click on Taryn, I can see each of the application and affordability statuses for the student. So I can scroll through every college they've added and see specific costs and award details. I see the same thing she sees. Um, I can see if they've uploaded the award letters. This view also includes all the same information that we provide to students, like the graduation rate, the earnings, the diversity of a given school, all customized to the student's profile. Um, when you select a student, you can see what they see. And, I think that that is, in terms of supporting conversations, it allows you to use the same language, refer to the same resource, and really promote, kind of a more thoughtful, intentional conversation because they already have the information that they need right in the app. And then you can have more kind of dialogue around the questions that they have around that content. So I just hope that you're starting to hear that with Decided, students can track their four-year colleges in one place. They can track their award letters as they get them. They can upload them for a real-time analysis, and they can compare their awards to make an informed choice. And then with the advisor dashboard, practitioners know which students are engaged on Decided. You see the colleges that they are adding, those that they've applied to and uploaded award letters for. You can help them track those awards and advocate for what they receive, support follow-up to colleges if needed, and there will be the ability to extract data you can use to tell a current picture of how supported your students are at the colleges they're applying to. So that's the advisor dashboard. And note that as you can see on this slide, that we are also developing an API. So if that's of interest to you, be sure to reach out to me for more information, and I'll have my email on the very last slide. So I think this is a good time to make sure that we have a chance to start answering any questions that you have. Before we do, just a few takeaways to keep in mind that we wanted to share with you. So again, we encourage you to have your students use Decided. It releases in the next couple of weeks, really formally with a public launch in December, where we'll be able to share out the Decided student app as well as the advisor dashboard. There's going to be a little bit of a difference in the release dates between the student experience and the advisor experience. We want to encourage you to have your students use the web app, the student web app, to manage their college lists, start tracking their financial aid award letters as they get them, and start to, or not start to, but continue to use that information about the colleges around, again, those important fit factors like graduation rate and diversity, even while they're applying, because sometimes students are using that information to build their college lists, but we want the students to keep these factors in mind so that as they get their acceptances, they're comparing apples to apples, to John's point, across the colleges accepting them. Those fit factors when they built their lists are still going to be important, even more so when they're having to make a choice. And one of those choice factors is affordability. We encourage you to get the advisor dashboard to support your students through their college decision process. And again, you've signed up for this webinar, so you will get a notification from us when we have more, when the tools are released. So stay tuned for that. And we encourage you to use the data that comes from the dashboard after you sign up throughout the year, and to plan future years of supporting students through college affordability planning. So I think we're ready to start going into the questions. Since I don't see any that many up quite yet, please go ahead and start adding your questions. Here are just a few I'm going to put up so that you see some frequently asked questions that we tend to get. So just to, as a reminder, as John shared earlier, students are uploading their award letters. They don't have to type information in. And privacy is a big important lens of ours as we develop this tool, and as we build out the advisor dashboard for you to use it with your students. So, okay, I see two different questions. So John, if you would like to respond to both of these. So the first one is, sorry if I missed this, but when will this tool be available? And how are we going to let folks know when it's up?
Yeah, so the official launch date will be in December, the first weeks of it. So around December 8th, 9th. We'll actually post out just reference to that date, and we'll have marketing material and outreach, and so everyone's aware of it. Again, as Meredith mentioned, it is two different timelines, a little bit different as far as when the advisor and the student one comes out. But initially, both will be publicly launched on that date around December 8th, December 9th.
Awesome, John. Thank you. And another question that we have, and please, again, everyone who's on, feel free to keep adding questions. Does Decided help predict which schools are affordable prior to submitting an application? Or is this just to evaluate financial aid awards once a student is accepted? Could you clarify that?
Yes, great question. So at this moment, as we built it out in this current state right now, it's really used for students to be able to compare the offers they're getting right now. We are working with other orgs that are thinking about this issue as well, and futuristically, if we can get to a point where we can support students in knowing what schools will give them what right from the get go, but we're not there yet. But our hope is to develop that by getting a lot of this information, figuring out where student success metrics are going, and by sharing this tool, this helps this development further along as well.
Thanks so much for that, John. And I'm happy to try to take a stab at this next question. So the next question is, how many colleges can you compare? And I would almost like to throw it out there as a question to the audience as well as what is the maximum number of colleges you think students might want to compare? And I put that out there because we've tested it. I mean, I can tell you, you can compare at least 20, I think, that we've discussed. Could it be more than that? Potentially. But if just by a few responses, if you want to put in the chat, like what's the max number of students that you would want us to double check? Can it allow for that number of comparisons? But I would appreciate just any insight you could offer there. But we do know that students have some students apply to many colleges, so we have built that into the tool, understanding that and not wanting to prevent students from being able to compare the colleges they apply to. But again, call to action. Please throw a number in the chat if you'd like to give us an indicator of the number of students that your colleges might try to compare in the spring. Could it be 3? Could it be 20? Are there any 30s out there? Um, so hopefully that answered that question. The next one, and John, look forward to your thoughts on this. So what types of institutions of higher education can be compared and decided? Private, nonprofit, for-profit, international?
Yes, so any four-year accredited institutions in the U.S., those are the ones that are already in our system. Currently, we're not having two-year community colleges or technical trade schools, but that could be something we may look to add down the road. But at the current moment, any four-year credit schools, that means private, nonprofit, for-profit, if they're in the USA and they're accredited already, then we have them in our decided, where they can be searched and they can be added.
Thanks so much for that, John. And we appreciate these questions because these are also lifting up for us what might be helpful to put in a frequently asked questions as we're developing them. So again, all these questions are super useful and helpful, I think not just for us, but for others on the call. So please keep them coming. We don't have any other questions beyond those two that we just answered. So John, any other insights about Decided? Knowing that we have advisors on the line, we've talked to different advisors over the last couple of weeks. Any insights you'd like to share?
Yeah, again, I think as an advisor who went through this and was supporting students, and firstly, to answer the question that Meredith asked for a call out, one of my students applied to 17 schools. So they were comparing 17. So that kind of came up with the idea of like, maybe we should have 20. Maybe they won't go over 20. But that was just a side thing. Um, as advisors, I think with Decided, what I know it would have helped me, and I think it can help and support advisors moving forward, is it's not to add more work to your table, but to really take away a lot of the things that just are busy work, right? Data entry or just tracking certain numbers or trying to get a student to give you certain information to support them. We're kind of just taking that task away and automating it. So therefore that you can focus with your student on the more important conversations. Because we know, that close relationship that you build with your students is very important. And what they might need is a valuable adult who they can go to, they can sound off of, talk about their decisions. With the information we've given them, for some students, they might already know what they want to do, but they just needed to solidify that decision by having that conversation with an adult that they trust. And that's really what we want to push, is to give the advisor more of that room to do what they're best at, which is use their relationship to support the student to thrive in the future and not have them hampered down with data, spreadsheet, chasing down numbers, chasing down things that we can take care of from our end for you.
Thank you for that, John. Um, yeah, and we're, there's I think what's really exciting is that this opens up the conversation in a lot of different ways with students about what's possible for them. And I actually really do appreciate the question, the way it was framed earlier about the potential to help students to consider affordability before their acceptances. So I'm going to note that question because it was super helpful and I understand the reasoning for that. But okay, we do have another question. And the question is a phone application planned in the future? And if I understand this question, since this is a web app, the question is, will we ever also do a mobile app? And I think from at least an equity standpoint, the reason we went with the web app is that there is limitations for students being able to access mobile apps if they don't have the kind of phones that can use those. Whereas with the web app, they can be on an iPhone or Android, they're just launching their browser. But if they don't have those tools, they can still use a laptop or a Chromebook provided by their school or something. So that was our initial goal, pursuing equity and as much access as possible of this tool for students across the country. But I've made a note that there was a question about a potential mobile app. I think what would be helpful is for anybody here who thinks there is value to a mobile app, to maybe send a message to all panelists with just a thought about it, about why a mobile app would be helpful for students over a web app. But I appreciate that question. All right, and we don't have any other questions and we do have folks on the line. So while we wait for more questions, why don't we go ahead and launch the last poll? We'll wait for a few more questions to come in, but this poll is to find out, what do you think so far? We would just love to get your gut reaction, whether you want to post a comment in the chat too to give some meat or context to whatever your answer would be super helpful. But yes, if you could just let us know, what do you think so far and how likely you think you'd be to recommend this, we'd super appreciate it. And it will help us to know how to, make sure that we make this the best tool possible for you and your students. So we'll wait for your responses. And this one, there's 2 questions. So you're going to answer, what are your thoughts about it and how likely would you be to recommend it? So please go ahead and start answering those 2 questions in the poll. Thank you so much for the affirmation already in the chat. We believe this is a great tool too. I'm so excited. I'm glad you are too. And any feedback, these questions have been great. That question about the max number of awards, that's the kind of stuff that we actually rely on you, the advisors who are working with students who are navigating this on the daily, every year, to lift up for us. So we make sure that this is as accessible tool as possible to the most possible number of students. So we appreciate that. All right, and still looking for questions. No questions. John, how are we doing on the poll? Do we feel ready to, or a few more seconds?
I'm just gonna give it just a little more time for a couple more people, and then we should be good.
Sounds great. And in the meantime, if you've already completed your poll, John and I are available for 18 more minutes. Happy to talk about anything decided, advisor dashboard, the stress of helping kids during this time. I mean, this is an advisor space and community. Happy to engage with you all. Okay, my URL that I put in the chat didn't work. Let's see. So this is the link that I get. I'm going to post it back into the chat. It's not that pretty shortened URL, but if you want to try that one, for those of you who said you just tried the link, but it wasn't working, this is our listserv to be able to sign up as an advisor. And we just saw the results. So thank you, John, for sharing that. All right. I am going to just say thank you once again while we wait for more questions, which I'm sure that you have. On behalf of our leadership and team, thanks again for joining us, this afternoon. All of us at Money Think are so excited that you are here to learn more about Decided and the Advisor Dashboard. And we hope you'll consider them as tools for your college affordability planning with students and families this year. We hope you found this to be informative and useful. Note that John and I are actually holding office hours starting next Thursday, the 19th at 4 p.m. and the following Tuesday, the 23rd at 11 a.m. So as part of the follow-up you'll get after today's webinar, along with a reminder that our recordings in the YouTube channel, just you'll have the chance to sign up for these office hours. So if you had really kind of implementation related questions, or there were questions you didn't want to get into in this space, but want to get into more one-on-one, I would encourage you to sign up for the office hours. It is going to be kind of like set up as a meeting. So there might be a few colleagues, but I found that to be really supportive and helpful in helping folks think about the different ways that they're thinking about the tools. So we hope that you'll sign up for office hours in the coming weeks. And I'm going to go ahead and put, so we put our sign up form, but for anyone who specifically wants to send myself, again, Meredith Curry, an email, my email's now in the chat. So mirror@moneythink.org. I know that quite a few of you were learned about this event through other contacts. And so we encourage you to please share this out. All right, I'm looking, still don't see any questions. John and I are still eager to answer any that might come up. So I will wait a few more minutes. And when it gets to like the 4:50 marker, if there's still nothing, I'm gonna start playing music and then we're really gonna close it out. Okay, so we do have a question that is less so about the Decided and Advisor dashboard, but perhaps more of an opportunity for the community to engage around like helping our students strategically right now. So the question is, I'd love to know how colleagues are making it possible to reach parents and get their participation in virtual events. So for any colleagues who would like to respond with any ideas, best practices that's helping them to reach parents and get parents to attend virtual events, you are encouraged to enter those into the chat. Make sure that you select all panelists and attendees so that your colleagues here in the space can see it too, not just John and I. I will just share that having participated in CalSO, Cash for College workshops, as well as college nights, as well as other events that have been hosted, we are seeing parents. It feels to me like maybe there's not as many parents being able to go because they're not learning about it, because of the timing in their schedules, things of that nature. So a few practices that I've seen is, providing like videos that have the information you'd like parents to see, and then providing another opportunity for them to like ask questions. I mean, that's kind of also why we do office hours, because sometimes you learn of the information, but it's not until later you really have your questions formed. So being able to make that time for parents. We've also seen folks use a lot more printed materials. So sending postcards, sending mailers in partnership with schools to homes, partnering with schools and districts to use their robocalling, things like that, that will get to parents. So stuff outside of just email. We are definitely hearing that social media is not where parents are going for the information for stuff like this, but we still encourage social media because it could get to the students, which could then, the students could get it to their parents. But would love to hear the thoughts from other folks. And John, any insights you might have, having been an advisor as well?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been, at least with the older age group, with the high schools, it's really going through the student a lot of the times for engagement from parents, right? And really just selling the idea of why it's important to bring parent and family to that conversation. That's actually part of what we also do in one of our guides, is to help help students recognize that, going to your family is not adding stress to them. It's letting them know early on, bringing them in as a team, really just building that coalition of like, you're working as a unit, you're working as a team, and that can kind of influence the communication that's happening beforehand as well. Because they're the first touch points directly for us to get to the families, right? Usually doesn't work the other way around. The parents are usually busy because they're working, they have other things going. But if their student directly communicates with them, that's the best way to reach them usually.
Thank you, John. And again, just for anybody else who's on who would like to support their colleagues with that question again, if you'd like to post your own ideas, is how to reach parents and engage them so they can participate in the virtual events you're scheduling. Another question that was sent to the panelists, but just thought because we do have many advisors on this call who are still on, if anyone has military, veteran, benefits and college information or resources to share. I do not feel as prepared to answer that question, John. I don't know if you have any resources that you're familiar with.
Yeah, I don't have them at the top of my head right now, but I have actually referenced a couple of resources through Cal State, which actually shows what students need to do specifically for those benefits. Um, I can try and look them up right now, and then I'll get back to that and I'll post it back in the chat.
Thanks, John. And shout out to Enrique for reminding us that we can also share the YouTube video that we have. So I'll go ahead and post it right into the chat. And that will take you to our MoneyThink channel also, where you can subscribe and follow us. But for any of your colleagues who couldn't join us today, that might be a good video to share to them. Okay, and so it is 4:50. We are not seeing any other questions. Thank you for the affirmation that this video is a good way to explain how the students can use the tool. So we encourage you to use that. And I see folks are starting to sign off. So for the rest of you, if you have any final questions, John and I are able to stay for a few more minutes. Otherwise, we're happy to say our goodbyes and give you all the rest of your evening. You're very welcome. Thank you again for joining us today. It means a lot to us. This is a busy time for y'all, we know. Yes, please share the YouTube link to your students. Can't wait to tell you about the rollout also. Christopher, here's my email. Please go ahead and email me and then I can get that initiated for you, what you're posting in the Q&A. So if you could actually email me to initiate whoever I need to email, that would be great. Awesome. And I think that's it. Alejandra! You can stop the recording, sorry. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna play closeout music just to really prove it. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. And for those who are taking tomorrow off, enjoy the day off.